Welcome to the Crypto Council. We are the podcast that decodes the most important disputes in crypto law and regulation. I'm Josh, an international lawyer who does crypto.
And I'm Frank, a finance and technology litigator who also does crypto.
Frank, I have exciting news from the international law front, and that's our guest today, because we're moving outside the borders of the United States, and we are going to be discussing European regulation of crypto, which of course has implications around the world.
That sounds great, Josh. I do have to say, you have been even more international focused than your usual self lately. Do you have something to share with us?
I do. I am returning to the State Department as Deputy Legal Advisor in just a couple weeks. And because of that, I think this will be my last Crypto Council episode for a while.
That is some big news. Very exciting news for you. It's a little sad for me, but we'll carry on. The show will go on, as they say.
You'll do better than carry on, Frank. I know that the Crypto Council will be in great hands, and that anyone curious about law and regulation in this space will stay waiting eagerly for every word coming out of this podcast.
I appreciate that, Josh, and goes without saying, it's been very fun doing this with you. We're going to miss you dearly on the podcast and at the firm, and wish you all the best of success and luck in your new venture.
Thanks so much, Frank. Now, before I get teary-eyed, why don't we go to our guest?
All right, sounds good.
We are delighted to have as our guest today Mike Romanenko, who is the Chief Visionary Officer and co-founder of Kyrrex, a company we are looking forward to learning more about. Welcome, Mike. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Big pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Kyrrex and its mission.
Very good question. The best one. Kyrrex is international crypto fiat ecosystem, let's say, because when we started, we were thinking about to have an exchange. But now, when we realize that the crypto market is not only about how to change one asset to another, it's a whole world. We decided that we want to extend our functionality, and our mission and vision, and to bring a different type of possibilities to people all over the world, which will be not only in crypto direction, but also digital banking, also traditional financial market possibilities, investments, the crypto field. So that's why we called us as an ecosystem at the moment.
Fiat ecosystem. It's a bold mission. Is that related to the name Kyrrex? Does that have a background?
Kyrrex, it has a background, but it's more about, let's say, Kyra. It's about the symbol of balance, wisdom, and protection, which is about, who we need to be in the financial world and the digital world. Another part is exchange, because from where we start as an exchange, and this is the name of the Kyrrex, let's say.
I like it. That sounds good. And for you, as the Chief Visionary Officer, we talk a lot on the Crypto Council about a lot of changes that have happened in the cryptocurrency space and kind of looking ahead to what's coming. What sparked your interest in crypto originally, and how does one come to be a chief visionary?
Yeah. So, in 2014-15, when my, let's say, most activity belongs to the traditional financial market, and I just tried to start some trading and buying some crypto at that moment. First of all, I realized as a user that the infrastructure and the possibilities which crypto market gives us that moment was not so good. And that's why an idea to build the platform was from this side. As a user, I'm not happy that the product which I'm using is not so good, and I want to build the product which will be reliable, easy to use and understandable for different people, because then I realized that the mission is to bring for the people all over the world the possibility to have this access to the crypto market. And most of the people, that they are thinking that it's pretty complicated. And our task and our mission is to make it simple for the people to have the access, to understand this market, and to have possibility to use this,
That's great. I think one of the challenges with the crypto space is that the complexities come not only from the technology, but also from the legal regulatory framework around that technology. Yeah. And one of the topics we're really looking forward to discussing with you is the MiCA Regulation. But I want to break this down into small pieces because many of our listeners are based in the United States or focused on the U.S. legal market, and they may not know much about the MiCA regulation. So what is the MiCA regulation? And let's start with what it stands for.
Yeah. So it stands for the market in crypto assets. And the idea of MiCA regulation is to make scope of rules all over the Europe, because you know that in Europe there is like plenty of countries, and all of them they have their own financial authorities who are making some rules. And for example, in banking, digital banking, and the financial markets, they already have some kind of directives all over the Europe which regulate the industry in all countries. So it means that once you receive license in, let's say, Spain for digital bank, it means that you can be a digital bank or neobank in all of Europe without having license in each country. And the same story is about the crypto. But before that, before the MiCA, all countries they have their own scope of rules, which is totally different to each other. And then, if the European Union and the authority called ESMA, they decide that they wanna, of course, create a one scope of rules which all countries and all authorities need to fulfill and to require to have these requirements, done. So that's why MiCA is this kind of rules which tells that each country and each authority need to make crypto business in this way and not another way. And it's very good because before that, for example, in one country you can have a very strict requirements what you need to do and how you need to build your business. Another country can give you the same, let's say, level of license in Europe, but without any kind of requirements. And from one point of view, for the users, it's good because, for example, we will not have so hard requirements as in for the compliance. But another point that you, as a user, will be not so, let's say, safe and secure with the company because there is no requirements for software, for the system audits, for the audits and stuff like that. So you cannot be sure that this company are doing business in proper way. So it's like from both sides you have the different thing.
Right. Leveling the playing field for all of Europe. And one aspect of this that I think is important to clarify for our listeners, because a big debate in the United States is between legislation of crypto versus executive branch regulation. And although the MiCA regulation has that name, we understand that this is an act of the EU Parliament, right?
Yep.
So it does come from the legislature, and I imagine that there are lots of complexities with implementing that.
You know what I really like in Europe, that they built, first of all, for example, I will tell from the experience of our company, because we, in the beginning of building our company, we understand that we want to be compliant. At the moment where nobody thinking about the possibility to be compliant because there was no regulation at all, we decided that we want to be compliant because we have a look into the future and understand that if the market want to grow big, anyway, you need to have a lot of institutional clients, a lot of institutional flows, investors into the industry, and it could be done only in a compliant way. So it's impossible for a fund to invest within an exchange or other company who are not regulated, because their fund managers and administrators and regulation will not allow that. So that's why we understand it, even when we start the business, that we want to do that. And that moment we understand that Malta, which is very small European country, already start to do implementation of a crypto regulation. And it was a time when both authority and companies working together to build up the requirements and regulation which will be proper one in Europe. And that's why for MiCA it was a very good background, because they use a lot of things which Malta already implement as a basis for their law. And also they create, let's say, working group where a lot of representatives from different crypto companies participated, and it was a discussion. Of course, there is some things which for me is also strange at the point, let's say, in the regulation. But in general, I understand that authority wanna be sure that the clients and their funds are in safe place, and this is most important, especially after huge cases which we had in the past in the crypto industry and how big was the harm to the industry. These cases, for sure, authorities wanna have the same story within Europe or other country in the world.
Right. No, that's fascinating. And I did want to ask also about Kyrrex's focus, because clearly you have this expertise in the European market, which we'll delve into more. But I was fascinated to see that you have some very prominent U.S. nationals on your board of directors. You have Admiral Bill Owens as chairman of the board. Michael Rogers is on the board, who formerly led the National Security Agency and the U.S. Cyber Command. So why is there this intersection of European focus and then leadership at the board level from some prominent U.S. nationals?
Yeah, so let's say in general, Europe is not only our focus. Our focus is to build, global ecosystem within different countries, and also, by the way, we started already the process in US. We already have MSB license, and we are operational in 10 states at the moment. So like US is also our focus, and the reason why we have for sure with people on the board, because we want to have also knowledge from, let's say, an experience from the classic traditional, let's say, finance and the technology, which is very important to combine, because to be honest, this is our mission and this is our task which we need, and the problem which we need to solve. We need to bring the people from the classic industry to the new industry, which for them seems very hard. And that's why we need to work with both sides to understand whether is the best fit and what kind of product will be the best fit for both sides to work with. And I'm very happy that for last year I can see that a lot of traditional financial institutions and the funds who never even think about the crypto, they start to do some steps into the field. And that's why this is the best thing which we which we have right now. And this is the reason of current, I would say, bull run, and the old bankers, old banks, and they are not against this, but they are really now into this process.
It is impressive leadership for sure, and it puts a finger on a problem that we see a lot here at the Crypto Council, which is crypto transcends national borders, but regulation does not. And so, Frank, What can we learn, or what should we think about for the MiCA regulation in the United States?
Yeah, I'm just thrilled to have Mike here to help us learn more about this. I mean, I'd just love, Mike, if you could sort of speak to the nuts and bolts of what MiCA requires of crypto companies and stakeholders. What should those entities be aware of with respect to MiCA?
Yeah, so let's say I will go through the maybe major points. That the most important thing from my side, I would say that this is the audits and check which you need to pass as a company to be a MiCA compliant structure. Because this is like what almost all the users are interested in. For them, it's most important to have understanding that, for example, let's say, very good example, a Tether. When they have issued their stablecoin, there was a lot of rumors, do they have the reserves or not, and a lot of questions. But once they start to do audits, there is no question, And this is really like the point, same in the industry of the, let's say, visualized service providers, that, without an audit, nobody knows what we are doing. So, and this is, I think, the biggest issue of the industry at the moment, as in centralized finance, because decentralized finance solves this issue. We have everything in blockchain, everything transparent. We cannot do nothing with that. But in centralized finance, nobody knows. And this is the biggest point, that all your software and finance and processes and procedures need to be reviewed and audited by external and internal audit. So let's say this is very important thing, and it changed a lot for the companies who already worked in Europe, because they didn't do this process. And also for the biggest ones who want to work in European Union. So this is the first point. Second point, it's about compliance and regarding KYT, KYC, and ML procedures, which is also very important, to check, is there any, let's say, bad activity related to the customer or to the transaction or stuff like that, which is also important. From client point of view, maybe it's not the best thing to have, but at least it's also important to understand that all the activity is in a proper way. I think this is the most important two things. Of course, like, you need to have board of directors, which is important to check your risk management system, because I'm sure if you don't have this requirement, no one company in Europe who don't have this requirements, they don't have risk managers, and they're doing proper evaluation of all kind of risk, which is also important. And once you have this implementation, it shows that you fill all the gaps, and the client can understand that, okay, this company has a license, and I can, be sure that there is no any kind of issues could be done by the company management or stuff like that. And because before that, the licenses which was granted by different countries, it means mostly nothing. And that's why, in this way, I can be sure that, first of all, the clients can be more safe and secure, especially who were not in crypto before. And another point, that another financial institution will interact with the crypto companies in more easier way. Because even with the license, it's very hard before the MiCA. Even now it will be hard, but it will be much easier to open a bank account or to transfer money. For example, if you have crypto, you want to, I don't know, buy a house or buy Lamba, as most of the crypto guys want to do. You cannot do it because most of the banks will not allow you to change crypto to fiat and then to transfer money to the bank because they don't like crypto exchanges, even if they are regulated. And that's why this is the point which is most important to the users, that they can have easy access and easy interaction between traditional financial system and crypto system.
On the audit requirement, are you finding that most crypto companies are hiring traditional external auditors, traditional finance external auditors? I'm thinking a PwC or KPMG or potentially smaller firms. Or is there a whole new set of auditors popping up around this requirement and supporting the unique circumstances of crypto?
This is, let's say, a challenge for the industry because the amount of the companies which were established like for the last 5 years in crypto space, it's extremely big. And the amount of the specialists in crypto who can do a proper evaluation is not so high. And this is like a challenge for the industry at the moment, I think. And only the traditional, let's say, auditors can do a proper audit. And also, which is important, only this kind of certificates of audit will be required by authority. So the point is that you need to find, let's say, traditional audit firm who can do financial and not only financial, but system audit. And same time, it's important that this firm will have, let's say, crypto person who knows how it works, who know what need to be checked and how to do this audit. So this is a challenge that there is not too many people, let's say, to audit all these firms. And I think it will be the next challenge for not only audit firms, but also authorities, because one side you have a lot of people who know about the crypto, but they're working in the business field. But in the authority field, there is not so many people who have this expertise and knowledge. And I hope that they will find out how to make some courses, how to do a lot of learning process for the people, to make more specialists who can make audit and to check the companies, because this is where we have a big delay between when the companies start to do the business and when the authorities start to understand that they need to check the businesses, So we have at least 5-6 years delay, and they need to invest a lot in this direction.
And so you were just mentioning the challenge around complying with the audit requirement. What are some of the other big challenges that companies like Kyrrex or other companies in your space might face when complying with MiCA?
I think the second challenge, it's, as I mentioned before, I mentioned it in one way, it's that you need to be compliant with the requirements of KYC, KYT, AML procedures, and the clients who didn't face this process before, they could be like a little bit disappointed because why they need to do it now. And I think this is a challenge, that your UI UX need to be very, very advanced. From the point that it need to be very easy to understand, and you need to implement all the steps in the proper way to not scare your client and to do the situation when they will think, okay, better I will use some unregulated platform where I don't have all this headache and I will do it there. So this is like another challenge, which from the business point of view, like once you receive the license, this is the next steps where you need to improve yourself and to do it properly,
So with these challenges, hopefully there's opportunities being created for companies that are striving for MiCA compliance. Can you just describe for us and give us a picture of what those opportunities look like in Europe and maybe even outside of Europe for those that are trying to obtain MiCA compliance?
Yeah, so biggest opportunity is that, once you are regulated, you can interact with institutions. And this is really a very good point, especially now when, for example, governments and the big funds, they are starting their strategies to implement their strategies into creating crypto reserves. This is very important opportunity because other companies who don't have the licensing, they just out of the scope for this kind of clients. So that's why it's a huge opportunity that you can interact with these businesses and these huge investments and, let's say, trading volumes, activities. This is a big part. Another part is that you can easily interact with the traditional financial banking system, because once you have MiCA implementation, most of the banks, they realize that, okay, it's not now it's regulated. Now it's the same financial institution as digital bank or brokerage firm or bank. and we can interact with them. Of course, some of them still, let's say, cautious about crypto, but it's much easier to find out this kind of partners. And for sure, if you don't have a license, for you it will be very hard to find this kind of partners. And most of the clients, at the end of the day, they want to have, after the trading, after the investment, after receiving airdrop, doesn't matter, they want to have their money on their bank cards or bank account. And without this kind of partners, it will be very hard or almost impossible or very expensive to provide the service. So for sure, you will have this opportunity.
I want to take that first example you gave, which is really interesting, the need for the MiCA license before trading with institutions. And then you mentioned, potentially governments with strategic reserves. That's a big area of discussion in the United States right now. Are there any EU member states that have strategic reserves of crypto?
Let's say before they had, especially Germany, they had this kind of reserves, but let's say it was the funds which was seized on some, let's say, criminal activity before.
Right.
They decided to sell it, if I remember correct, maybe 4 or 6 months before.
So no, that makes sense. And it's the same in the United States. I know that the U.S. government has acquired a lot of crypto through those kinds of seizures. But let's assume, for example, that there was a country that said, hey, we want to build our strategic reserve. Would a company need to have a MiCA license before it could sell crypto to that government?
Yes, 100%. So two points. First, that the investment firm or you need to have a license for crypto, fiat, and exchange. So, for example, if you just selling your own cryptocurrency, so it's one story. But for example, if you are interacting with a fund or entity and you are doing the business in, let's say, virtual asset service providing or exchange or TC, doesn't matter, you need to have this license. In other case, this entity are not able even to make a contract with you. Another point, that another license, which is custody license. So if you are a fund, you cannot just buy Bitcoin and put in your wallet and wait. Because to do that, you need to have a partner who will cover a custody as well. Custody process. Same, for example, in the traditional financial, let's say, brokerage, when you have separately a broker firm who are doing, let's say, trading in stocks, and then you have also depository institution who are doing custody of the stocks on the behalf of the clients. So this is the same story which need to be done in crypto. And for sure, without the license, it's impossible to do.
And so this is all really fascinating stuff, Mike. On that second use case of accomplishing compatibility with traditional finance providers, is the idea, am I understanding right, that basically you could have a scenario where a MiCA compliant crypto company, whether it's a sort of brokerage or an exchange or some other kind of provider, they could work hand in hand with a traditional finance company like a Citibank or a Vanguard, yes. And so the MiCA sort of is working with both of the traditional finance and the digital asset, newer finance piece.
Yes, and this is exactly the point that, for example, with this kind of regulation, this is part of our strategy as well, is that we understand this is one of the best way to bring digital assets into the masses. It's through the banking partners and the partners who already in traditional financial business, who has millions of clients, let's say, who are doing, let's say, traditional trading with the stocks, futures, or they have bank account. And once you partner with this company and you can provide a crypto digital asset services and possibility to buy crypto in the bank. And this is very interesting direction. And this is very interesting direction because people, they already have trust with the bank. They have the functionalities they know very well. And you just add a separate, swap, let's call it swap button where they can press and they can see, okay, I can buy right now, Bitcoin from my bank account. I'm not going to another platform. I'm not going to anywhere. I'm just using the same web interface or application which I have used for 10 years. And I have just new functionality to buy crypto. And this company can provide, with this bank or this digital bank, can provide the services only with the partner who has MiCA license, or they need to obtain the MiCA license by themselves, which for the banks, it takes a long.
That's really, really interesting. So if a new company, a new startup, or a new entrepreneur came to you and they were thinking about setting up shop in Europe and pursuing a MiCA license, sort of what's the most, the simplest, most practical advice you might give to that entrepreneur or that new business?
At the moment, it's like a lot of people asking the same question, especially who already had a business in crypto in Europe. And what I can say is that the best option if you want to continue your business on or start doing fast and you don't have, let's say, a good budget for licensing, better to start with a partner. So this is what I can say from the few good cases, worldwide good cases, business models, when you can start with a white label on the technical stuff, with a white label on the legal stuff, and you just start to do your business model. And once you are like prove your business model, then you can start the process, because in general it takes at least 12 months for you to receive the license, another 3 to 5 months to start to be operational after you receive the license, and it costs a lot. I mean, of course, everything is compared. If you're already in exchange with a multi-billion volume, for you it's doesn't matter. But if you are, let's say, beginner and you want to start your crypto business in Europe, it's better to use someone's license for the beginning, and then once you have budget, you can start to do the licensing by yourself. And 100% the best option is you need to find a proper lawyers, which is also pretty hard, because in most of the countries, because they had a lack of regulation, to compare with MiCA, I mean in Europe, lawyers, they also not so well experienced in this direction, and that's why you can waste money teaching them or to study with them together about the MiCA regulation. And this is something which will be hard to avoid in the next 12 months, I think. But the starting entrepreneurs should do that properly, because really the legal side costs a lot, and sometimes you really pay for the time where lawyers can just learn by themselves how it works. So,
we always like the advice to find good lawyers who know crypto law and regulation. So we will second that heartedly. There are a lot of changes afoot in the United States, as you may know, after the recent election. In crypto law and regulation, there's discussions about legislation and regulation, what's going to change, what's the way forward. The EU, in a way, has already taken a major step that the United States has not taken through MiCA. Do you think that the United States lawmakers should or will likely follow any aspects of MiCA?
No, we were speaking about that, I think, 1 year ago with our team and board as well. And let's say in general, it will not look like this, for sure. But
why is that? Obviously, they're very different markets, but why such a clear view on that?
It will not look like that, because it's also about the, let's say, to be the flagship in the direction. And what I understand also from the about, like, how to say, an amount of assets which held by US citizens, amount of market interest, amount of crypto adoption, US is a flagship, and for sure US should be a flagship in the regulation. And for me, it was very strange that so many years there were no clarity about that. And even this MSB license and MT licenses, it's not a crypto regulation. And yes, it somehow regulates the market, but it's not very clear vision. So that's why I think that US, let's say, authorities will take some, let's say, examples, will take some knowledge from the regulation in Europe, in other countries. Because, let's say, come back to the traditional finance and banking. We cannot say that somebody was first and second. What we can say is that almost all the regulation all over the world in the financial industry is very similar. I mean, if we speak about Europe, US, Hong Kong, Singapore, and this is the point. And that's why we will not say that it will be a big difference between the methods and the general, let's say, legislation in these countries. Maybe some small things will be different, maybe some changes, because the same story was when we check legislation in Hong Kong, once they provide the legislation last year in June, and not 2024, 2023. They provide this legislation for the crypto, and we realize that it's very similar to MiCA. There is some changes in the share capital requirement, maybe board of directors stuff, but in general it's the same. And it cannot be different, because this is financial industry, and if we speak about principles of security, transparency, you have almost all the same rules in different countries. So I think that it will be something similar. One direction where I cannot say there is a clarity is about decentralized finance, because there is still no clarity even in Europe, and this is where I'm curious to see who will be the first to regulate a decentralized finance and how it will be done.
Interesting. In the same way that crypto technologies are rising and falling in these early stages of the industry, it seems that we could see the same thing with crypto regulation. And based on what you've said about MiCA and about even the Hong Kong regulation, and then looking ahead to what's going to happen in the United States, as an active participant in this industry, what would you say is the most important or the best aspect that a crypto law or regulation should have?
I think I mentioned it. It's transparency and security of users. This is 100%. Because this is exactly the reason why authorities were created, and their major functionality is to keep secure rights for all the users. Because in the way where you have centralized finance institution who has access and custody of assets of the clients, it's impossible to be self-regulated.
That makes a lot of sense, given that the starting premise of blockchain is inherently transparency. So I think regulation that further advances that inherent aspect of the technology makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Mike, this has been so interesting, really helpful to learn about the MiCA regulation from you and about Kyrrex and your mission. Any final words for us?
Of course, I'm very glad to be here to spread this information to your audience, to the people, to understand what is happening in Europe, and to be ready as well in the US for such kind of steps, because I'm sure that they will be very soon. And I hope that these steps will bring much more adoption and much more vision for the crypto industry in the future.
That's a great word. I think most of the crypto industry would agree with that. Well, thank you again, Mike. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Big pleasure.